Hey people, Fernando doing another video for the channel, and in this case I want to talk about a question that I was asked a couple days ago. I was doing this interview for a prepper channel. I'll leave the link as soon as I have one, but I think it's one of the most common questions I get asked all the time, and as things keep on changing and we see a different reality around us, well, the answer may end up changing as well. And the question is, how close is the United States to an economic collapse like the one I went through in Argentina? This is what I've been focusing most of my preparedness over the years. It started with my experience going through that. As you guys know, I wrote about that in Surviving the Economic Collapse based on my experience in Argentina. Over 1,000 reviews in Amazon. Thank you so much for the support over the years. If you haven't bought it already, this is probably the best time. Get it in paper while you still can. It's gonna be the link there below in Amazon. And if you really want to learn about that sort of thing, how is it going through an economic collapse? Yeah, I have a dedicated book about that, which, yes, of course, most of you that have been with me for a very long time probably read it already, but it's a question that is yet again surfacing, and people, hey, so how close are we really? Are we about to become this soon? What is it that you see? Well, again, for those that have been following my channel and have known me for a while now, you know that there's certain key aspects that I always make reference to. The idea of inflation was a huge trigger for the economic collapse of Argentina. The idea of an impossible, unbearable debt that could not be paid back, that was the main trigger. Then there's these factors, like, as I was saying, inflation. One other thing is the inability to withdraw money from your own accounts. And I was just reading this. This is from Forbes. ATM withdrawal limits, what you need to know. Well, you probably need to check that up as well. The limit is probably a lot smaller than you probably think. And this is something that, again, I've read and heard of people saying, I'm only allowed $300, $500, $1,000. I have to make an appointment to get a couple $1,000 from my own bank. Those are the things that people are saying. So if you really look at the complete picture, you see the worst inflation you've seen in the last 40 years, and even the inflation, as bad as it is right now, the official number, it's probably twice as much if you remove all of the little tricks that they do so as to keep that number from scaring the crap out of people. Inflation is really awful as it is. And this idea, the 8%, 9%, really, yeah, you can cook these numbers quite a bit depending on what price specifically have you been looking at. Have you been looking at what? The fancy pasta that was already expensive, so it hasn't really gone up in price all that much? Are you looking at the more affordable one that doubled in price in some areas? The prices do not go up the same way all across the board, even in the same city. This is a fact. Even in a same city sold under the same chain of stores, the price is usually according to the purchasing power of that community, of that neighborhood. They do these things. They fine-tune how much money they can get out of you. It happens all the time, all over the world. So all of these things combined show you a very, very bleak picture. So going back to this question, is it about to end up like Argentina? Is it the same thing? No, it's not the same thing, but it is very concerning how similar it is. Because you do have the inflation, even though it's not as completely out of control inflation like we saw in Argentina, where I would go to a store and the following day the price of Kellogg's cereals have doubled or tripled, even more expensive than in dollars in the United States. And that was something that was affecting pretty much anything you picked up. So, prices doubling, your groceries doubling in a matter of a couple of weeks or so. That is, crippling. It's not crippling. It just, a full-blown economic collapse where just people fall of the, social pyramid where middle class, poor, and rich are usually placed. Well, everyone just drops like a damn iceberg, right? It just goes underwater, and people that are either on the upper middle class or on top are the ones that just get by. If not, you're just drowning. So we definitely see that it's not the hyperinflation that we've experienced more than once in Argentina, but it is still very high. You don't see a limit of like $100 per day, but if you already have a limit of $300, that is already very close. You are already experiencing a very serious limitation on how much access you have to your own money. You have to make arrangements. How much money can you really get? These are all tactics in place so as to prevent a bank run, so as to prevent people from getting into their heads that at any moment I can just show up and demand my money. It is my money. I want it back right now. Okay, no, that won't happen. That's not how this works. People little by little get used to this. And then there's the fact of violence. And this is something that you've already saw, maybe at times even worse than in Argentina. So all of these madness scenes across the United States for the last couple years, until very, very recently, it was pretty much daily that cities were burning in the United States. This has already happened, okay? So this is something that you already experience. So this part is, you can tick that box. But going back to this and this, well, there's a difference. Argentina and the United States are not the same thing, of course. The main difference is, besides, of course, the economy, the big difference is that you can keep on printing the currency of the world. You can keep printing, as bad as things are all over, and they are, no doubt about that, but you're still printing the currency of the world. So with your rich Saudi pals and your allies in Europe and so on, everyone gets along and still understand that, up until now, we still play the game of the US dollar. So that is very much keeping the United States from going down in the exact same way as Argentina. Now, this does not mean that you will not end up in a similar place, but going through a different path. It hasn't got to be the exact same path. I mean, things like this you may end up seeing, like like peaking at some point. Violence, again, the violence part, you already saw that. It could happen again. One of the things I always say is, if it happened before, if it happened at some point, it could happen again. Let alone if it happened during entire years. At times, very recently, yes, you can see cities burn again very soon. You can still survive through that, like most Americans did. Some of them did not. Some Americans did not survive the 2020, 2021 rioting, daily burning of cities. Some people lost their lives. Now, is that the main concern that you have in terms of preparedness? No, of course not. There's a lot more, imminent issues that you should be addressing. But this is one more thing you do keep in mind. Where do I live? How do I protect myself? Do I have a carry gun? Am I the stuff that I talk in street survival skills? You plug in my books with different topics, but it just comes to mind because these are all things about realistic preparedness. But if you're really concerned about how is it that I'm going to be seeing it, I have no crystal ball here, guys. That's something that I say all the time. I can't tell you that, given the pattern, given what I know, not only what I've gone through myself, but given the many years of learning, researching, talking with people from other countries that have seen their economies collapse as well. Very similar in some cases, like Greece. That was pretty similar to the case of Argentina, even though not as dramatic, and especially being in the European Union, that pretty much avoided that for them. Yet another difference to keep in mind. But this does not mean that you cannot, this does not prevent you from ending up the exact same way through a different path. One day you wake up and you are here. Nonetheless, even though you didn't see 100% inflation in a couple of weeks, maybe it was a constant, 9 here, 15 there, 20 this year, but they told me it was 9. We were being reported the same inflation you guys are being told, even though we all knew it was a lie. When they were telling us that we were seeing like 9% inflation, it was closer to 25 or 30 per year. Sustain that for 10 years, and you are Argentina. The kind of inflation you're seeing now will cause you to end up like this. No joke. I'm not exaggerating. You can take this to the bank. This is a fact. The kind of inflation you already saw, of inflation you already saw in 2022. 22 is just about to end. And there's no indication that this is getting better anytime soon at all. It's actually the opposite. Inflation is not under control by any means. And if they think that they're going to be stopping inflation by printing even more money, yeah, that is definitely not. This is just like throwing gasoline into a fire. But you sustain this, the more time that goes by, and you still have a couple years of a president that said he plans on changing nothing. Like I said in the live stream a couple days ago, Joe Biden saying, okay, now that you did well in the elections, what are you changing? Nothing. Quote from him, nothing. There's no intention to change anything. So sustaining this kind of inflation, this kind of economy will end up in this for the great majority of Americans. That's simply how it is. Now, you're not collapsing in just a couple of weeks or months, like in the case of Argentina, because you don't have an Argentine peso that you cannot print and sell to the rest of the world, for the rest of the world to use. But if this continues, you will be like that. The difference is that instead of seeing your president resign and run away, like we saw, and having martial law declared, and everything being a mess, well, it will be a mess in stages. But with the economy the way it is, with all of these red flags, that they are all there already. They are, the idea of wanting to stop a bank run, that would be maybe one of the key things to keep an eye on. A bank run kills any economy. No country can survive a bank run. And this is emotional. We think about economy as numbers, as math. No, it's actually a social thing. It's a sentimental thing. The economy is sentimental. It's just a piece of paper. It's just a matter of how much that piece of paper has the trust of the people. As soon as you don't trust that piece of paper anymore, it doesn't matter if it's an Argentine peso, if it's a Zimbabwe $1 trillion bill, or $100. It doesn't matter. As soon as people believe that that's not holding its value anymore, people will run to the bank and try to empty their accounts. And when they find out that they cannot, you will see, a lot not only of violence, you will see a complete loss of trust in that fiat currency, which is just held by the common belief that it's still worth something. And the more you see inflation, the more you see people realize that, they can keep on printing as much as they want, but if it keeps purchasing less and less, then you have a serious problem in your hands. Folks, that's pretty much how I see it. I think that no, this is not Argentina yet, but man, it is getting there, just through a different path. Take care. See you in the next one.